How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Steven Talks. And today, Steven's going to talk about becoming a metal fan. It's been a little over a year now since I took it upon myself to take a deep dive into the world of metal. And it's been an amazing ride so far. So along the way, of course, I have discovered some pretty seminal albums that mean a lot to me. And this is going to be the first part of this journey because it's pretty lengthy. And so this is going to be part one of me becoming a metal fan. To start all of this off, I'm actually going to have to go back in time, back to probably around when I was in 4th or 5th grade. I had a buddy of mine that I hung out with all the time, and we would go over to his house, or we would be at his house, in his room hanging out. I remember he had this huge poster of the band Rat on his wall, which at the time I always thought was badass, but now, well, who am I kidding? Now I still think it's badass, that somebody could rock a Rat poster. But no, the first album that I'm going to talk about is one that he played constantly, and I heard every single time we hung out, to the point to where finally one day I was like, what is this? What are we listening to? And he was like, oh, well, this is a band called Metallica, and this album is called Master of Puppets. And this is it. This is the album we were listening to. And I had heard of Metallica because not long before that, they had released a video for their song One from their album And Justice for All. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I know Metallica, I've seen the video. But every time we hung out at his house, this is what we listened to. And so Master of Puppets was just drilled into my head. And it is an incredible album. Just start to finish. There's not a bad track on it. And so I eventually bought the tape of Master of Puppets. And that tape became the soundtrack to so many days of riding my bike or my skateboard around the neighborhood. I had my Walkman. I would pop the tape in and just all day long would just flip. I'd listen to one side, take it out, flip it, listen to the other side, take it out, flip it, start the whole album over again. And yeah, this is a seminal album for me. There are parts of each of these songs that immediately take me back to very specific times and places in my life. So this album is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. So like I said, this is when I was young. So you would think that, all right, he's a young kid, he's listening to Metallica. He's going to grow up to be this huge metalhead. And that's not what happened at all. Because if you've watched my previous video, around the time that I was in middle school was when Nirvana hit. And I became obsessed with Nirvana. So I was wrapped up in anything Nirvana related or anything Sub Pop related and stuff like that. So throughout my life, I've been aware of metal bands. I've been fans of metal bands, but I've never taken the time to just dive into the genre. And all of that changed a little over a year ago. I would say probably February, March of 2025. I was helping my parents move out of their house, and they called me up one day and they were like, we found a box of some of your old things, if you want to come by and pick it up. So I came and got the box, and in the box were a few random CDs. And one of those CDs was, this is actually not a CD, but it was this album right here. Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. And I was a bit confused because I have no memory of, of getting a copy of this. I don't remember buying it. I don't remember having it given to me as a gift. No clue at all, which I think would alarm most people. But I mean, let's be honest, there's entire years of my life that I wouldn't be able to pull up if I needed to. So I thought, well, all right, sure. You know what? I'll rock out to some Maiden. So I got in the car, took out the CD, popped it in the CD player, and it was like a scene out of a movie, where a character hears something and then all of a sudden their eyes get as big as dinner plates. And I listened to this album front to back, and every song was amazing. Just, I don't know, it did something to my brain. Like, around this time, just getting honest with you for a moment here, my head was getting really messed up because of just everything that's going on in the world, everything that's going on in our government and stuff like that. It was getting really easy to become negative. It was becoming really easy to just get down and kind of lose hope about humanity in general. And so I was struggling a bit. And then hearing this album, it has, Iron Maiden has this propulsive sound. They call it the Maiden Gallop, where it's the sound of like forward momentum. It's just like, like the sound of charging into battle. And every song has that. Even the slower ones will eventually hit that Maiden Gallop. And it did something to my brain. Like it gave me hope. I know that sounds cheesy, but I'm being honest. It filled me with positivity, and it made me feel like, you know what, man, like no matter what happens, there is hope. No matter what happens, I'm gonna fight for what I believe is right. And that was all due to Number of the Beast. And I mean, it's a classic album, man. You've got Run to the Hills on it. You've got the song Number of the Beast. My God, Hallowed Be Thy Name. Like it's full of amazing tracks. And so after listening to it front to back, I have a tendency to laser focus on things that I become, instantly obsessed with. And so my brain was like, all right, we need to hear everything these guys have ever made. So I began to listen to any and all of Iron Maiden's albums. In the process, becoming a huge Maiden fan. I love them to death. My wife and I are going to see them in September. They are coming to the area. I'm stoked about that. And it, again, not trying to sound cheesy, but it meant the world to me to discover them when I did. And it was just perfect timing, And so I started getting into Maiden, and then I thought, you know what? There is a whole field of metal bands out there that I am only vaguely familiar with. I know them by name, but I've never really listened to their albums and stuff. So what if I just take a deep dive into metal? And so I did. When I do these things, I always have to start at the beginning. So I was buying every book on the genre that there is, reading all about the history of metal and hard rock. Of course, starting with Sabbath, and Deep Purple, around, those bands that were really there at the beginning, and then moving on into bands like Maiden and the next band, who I think if you really listen to a lot of Maiden, more often than not, you're going to find yourself listening to this next band. And that band is the one and only Judas Priest. Yeah, man, I very quickly became a massive Judas Priest fan. And this album sealed the deal. Defenders of the Faith, man. Now, I had been familiar with Judas Priest, you know, being a teenager of the 90s and watching every episode of Beavis and Butthead. I was very familiar with like Breaking the Law and, you know, just listening to radio. You've got another thing coming. Living After Midnight, all of those great songs. But when I finally started to go through Priest's albums, when I got to Defenders of the Faith, this one blew my mind. I mean, first of all, look at this cover, dude. Like, this cover is amazing. This is one of the best, like, metal covers ever made. I think this is called the Metallion. There's a name that they gave this thing. This used to be their stage setup. This album came out in '84, I believe. And for this tour, they had a giant Metallion or whatever. If I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. But yeah, this dude was on the stage. And like the drummer was up here. And they're all performing in between the pause. I would have loved to have seen that in person. But this album is phenomenal. It has my favorite Priest track, which is Love Bites. Not to be confused with the Def Leppard song. This is the Priest song, Love Bites. It's got the Sentinel on it. Every song is perfect. There's not a bad track. This is a front to back, put it on, hit play, do not skip album. So yeah, Defenders of the Faith. I love this album. So yeah, I was a Maiden fan. I was a Priest fan. I was going through any and all of the 80s metal that I could get my hands on. And I was having a blast with it, man. I was kind of rediscovering a lot of the hair metal bands, you know? So I'm listening to like Cinderella, which their first album is phenomenal. I'm getting into other like lesser known 80s metal bands. And by lesser known, I mean by like the general public. But hearing bands like Helloween. I love Helloween. They're so phenomenal to me. And my friends, Lee and Jason, my dear best friends, both of these dudes are metalheads. And so, you know, I went to them on our Spooky Movie Monday nights and I said, listen, guys, like, what metal bands do I need to know? Like, I'm trying to take this deep dive into metal. What would you suggest? And they just like sit down, let us show you. And then they brought YouTube up. And so to this day, that is still one of our traditions when we go Monday nights to Lee's house to watch a movie. Before we watch the movie, we go to YouTube and we watch metal videos. And Jason gave me this huge bag of CDs of his. And he's like, take these CDs, rip them to your computer. These are all these albums that you need to know and be familiar with. And through the couple of bags he gave me, there were amazing albums that I discovered. But one in particular stood out because it melted my face off. And that is, in my opinion, probably one of the best metal albums ever made, bar none. And that is Don't Break the Oath from Merciful Fate. This album this is the quintessential metal album. I mean, first of all, again, look at this cover. This is the cover of a metal album. This is the cover of an album that before you even listen to it, it is letting you know. It is going, I'm about to melt your face off. And it did. Merciful Fate, the singer, King Diamond. This guy, he has a voice that I get. It's an acquired taste. He sings in this like glass-shattering falsetto. But he's also credited with being the I guess originator of the black metal look where they did the corpse paint on the face. But back in the 80s, King Diamond would put this makeup on his face, but he would wear like these really like gaudy Dracula capes and stuff. And, to most people, he looked ridiculous. To me, it's glorious. But yeah, his voice, there's a lot of people that aren't a fan of his voice. I think it sounds amazing. But Don't Break the Oath, that's the album that all of the parents in the 80s were concerned that their kids were listening to. Not specifically that album, but when Tipper Gore and Nancy Reagan were on their crusade to save the youth of America, they kept talking about like, oh, we're protecting them from these heavy metal albums that glorify Satan and all this stuff. But they would pick all of these other albums that really didn't fit that description at all. Don't Break the Oath is that album. Like, this is the album that they were scared of and didn't even realize it. This whole album is full of satanic imagery. It is full of evil and the occult and everything. But the kicker is that the whole album's telling you, like, don't mess with this stuff. Don't break the oath. Like, this stuff is not going to get you anywhere good. So, yeah, there may be some spooky stuff out there, but don't play around with it. But it is a phenomenal album. It is one that when you put on, man, you're going to headbang, you're going to rock out to for the entire length of the album. I can't recommend it enough. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. This was the first part. This was the birth of my love of heavy metal. And I'm going to make a follow-up to this where we talk about my next phase. Because now, over a year later, I have gone through quite a few bands and I have dipped my toes into all sorts of subgenres of metal, because one of the first things I found out is there's like 187 subgenres of metal. And it's a bit of a journey. So thank you for listening to me talk. I can't wait to talk to you again. Take it easy, everybody.